Jai Hind everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel which is Explore Yourself, Banking and General Knowledge, etc. From Mailroom to Corner Office, A Banker's Journey by Dr. R. Srinivasan. This is the cover page of the book. Today, that is on 26th August 2025, I'll be sharing episode 19. For the next four slides, please find the episode links of the previous episodes. Bank of India and IBA, Mumbai. The chapter Bank of India and IBA, Mumbai will be continuing today. Promotions within the bank went on more or less as normal. During my chairmanship, I was able to convince the RBI and the government that a bank of our size needed more general managers, and I got their approval for filling those additional posts. That way, many deputy general managers got to move up to the next grade quicker than they might have imagined. A small digression. Generally, I was keen to maintain a standard of letter writing. One day, my secretary sent me a neatly typed letter for my signature. Instead, I drew a line in the margin and simply wrote, "Flag will fly half mast," and sent it back. All the three secretaries in the room were not able to understand why I had written such a remark and returned it. They did not come to me and ask, but went to some GMs and showed them the remark. They too did not understand the reason for such a comment. Finally, the lady who typed the letter came to me for clarification. I just drew her attention to what she had actually typed. The words were "death, sir" instead of "dear, sir." All of us had a hearty laugh, and the flag was neither hoisted nor lowered. At the beginning of my tenure in BOI, I noticed a trend among the senior officers to take decisions independently. Despite this, they used to seek instructions from the chairman on matters where they could have taken decisions for themselves. Sometimes they made decisions and still sent the file to the chairman for information, please. On one occasion, I had to return one such file with my remark, "I'm already well informed. There is no need for sending this for my information." This stopped such notes thereafter. To place it on record, I decided to issue a circular affirming my full support to executives for taking decisions even if the decision went wrong. But there was one rider. The decisions should be honest, bona fide, and genuine. I made it very clear that any insincere or duplications decision would not have my support. In all meetings and visits to various offices, I repeated this mantra. This had the desired effect and decision making more transparent and quick. Some officers have suffered setback in their career due to lack of proper support from their superiors and were left to struggle with their fate. One such incident came to my notice casually. In the Commercial and Industrial Credit Department (CNIC) at the HO, there was a senior officer but was stuck at scale 4. In my interactions with him during meetings, I found him much above the general level of abilities of his colleagues. I therefore called him to my office and asked why he remained stuck at scale 4. He narrated his side of the story and mentioned that some of the general managers were his contemporaries. He said that no one took his case seriously. He added that my predecessors gave him many assurances, but nothing came of it. He was skeptical about any favorable outcome of my taking up the matter. I persisted and asked him to give me full details of his case, which was stuck at the Central Vigilance Commission's office, Government of India. I took up the matter in all earnestness and visited the office of CVC in Delhi and convinced them that a gross injustice had been done to an efficient and honest officer and that it should be rectified. Ultimately, one evening around 5:30 p.m., when practically everybody had left for the day, I got a letter from the CVC clearing his case and allowing the bank to restore his status with retrospective effect. Even though it was getting late, I found that he was still in the office. I called him over and without saying anything just handed him the letter from CVC. After reading the letter, he started crying and touched my feet. I felt very happy that God had given me a position where I could play a positive role in the life of another person. The officer concerned could not believe that I had succeeded and restored his honor. He was given the promotion that he had missed with retrospective effect. He retired sometime after I retired, and unfortunately he is no more. His name was Ashok Nandakarni. Even now I could recall his face, his voice, and his demeanor. May his soul continue to rest in peace. This is one person whom I'll never forget in my life. Similarly, the satisfaction I derived in handling his case was something that only I can understand and feel thankful to God. I do hope that some readers might have known him and would confirm my opinion about him. I would also like to mention that there were other brilliant officers in the bank who were modest and possessed uncompromising virtues. One such officer was Mr. Posse, who wrote excellent English. I was fascinated by his style of writing, even though I needed to look at a classical English dictionary to understand the meaning of some of his words. But if you had ever known him or seen him, you would not imagine that such a brilliant person could be so self effacing. At a later stage, and after I retired, he was taunted by a very senior executive who had come to our bank from outside and who had by then earned a reputation for being sarcastic and critical of BOI officers. Posse told him that his intelligence could be questioned, but he will not allow any person to question his integrity. He could not swallow the insult and simply resigned. The same sarcastic executive threatened another officer by the name of T.R. Madhavan and asked him to give a false affidavit in some matter. Madhavan, who knew that consequences for not obeying this order would be dire, never wilted under the pressure and told the executive to go ahead with his plans, but he would not do or say anything that, according to him, was not correct. These officers, who were much lower on the official ladder, were the real heroes of the bank, and they were admired and appreciated for their fearless nature and for standing their ground even when under pressure. I was proud of them. Sri Sharad Pawar, now Chief of Nationalist Congress, considered a Maharashtra strong man, was the Chief Minister of Maharashtra during my chairmanship of Bank of India. I had to go and meet him. Much earlier, the government of Maharashtra had decided to allocate space for Bank of India at Nariman Point next to where the Free Press House is now standing. The place allotted to Bank of India and Central Bank of India was in the sea, but the government was planning to reclaim the land and hand it over to us for building our new head office. Years passed on and this was not happening. I met the cabinet secretary, Mr. P. K. Kaul, and sought his intervention. As I was also the chairman of IBA, I was given due importance and attention. Mr. Kaul wrote a letter to the Chief Minister, Sri Sharad Pawar, and asked to expedite this development work. It was only through that connection I was called by the Chief Minister to his office. The Chief Minister did not take any offense for my making the Cabinet Secretary write to him. He was also very courteous. He said that circumstances had changed and that no more reclaiming of land under the sea was proposed, as such work posed a danger to the environment. He asked me whether I was willing to accept an alternate space in the Bandra Kurla area, in which case he would give me the plot of my choice immediately. At the time, Bandra Kurla was a god-forsaken area and no one would bother to go there. I told Shri Pawar that if I accepted the offer, there was every possibility of my successors in the bank blaming me for agreeing to have bank's head office in a remote place like BKC, Bandra Kurla complex. I said that I would neither withdraw the existing allotment at Nariman Point or accept the alternate in BKC. If anyone looks at the present changed scenery, it would look like I made a blunder in not accepting the offer made by the CM. I tend to come to that conclusion myself and I reported this conversation to my board at their next meeting. The directors also felt that I did was a safe way out. At this point, I would like to mention that many years earlier, the bank where the The place where the iconic building of Air India is standing today was offered to Bank of India and it was declined by my predecessors. I do not know whether I would have faced the situation if only our bank had taken the space offered to us that we declined, but Air India accepted it and has put up a landmark building. Now the government under Mr. Devendra Fadnavis BJP have announced that they will be reviewing and relaxing the restrictions to reclaim land under the sea. It is possible the present management may consider renewing a request for allocation of space in Nariman port. If there was anyone who knew Maharashtra like the back of his palm, it was and is only Sri Sharad Pawar. Bandra complex would never have come up as an alternate business district in Mumbai but for his farsightedness, a very shrewd politician whom even his political adversary would not hesitate to admit his abilities and leadership. Only our President of India, Sri Pranab Mukherjee, 2012 to 2017, described Sharad Pawar as one whose words and deeds mean different things to different people. One can easily understand Sharad Pawar. Early in my days at Bank of India, we thought of introducing a credit card. We entered into an understanding with MasterCard who were to give us the technical know-how. Mrs. Rukmini Ramani, who was Deputy General Manager, was given the responsibility to plan and implement the scheme. I was seriously considering giving a name to the card. My thinking was, if MasterCard and Visa companies can have a card and make it so popular that they can be used anywhere in the world, why can't Bank of India also have one? For that, we needed a popular name for the card without bracketing it as a product exclusive to BOI, because my plan was to have a card that could be used by other banks in India who did not have one of their own. One day in the morning, when I was going to the office in Nariman Port, my second son Shrikant, who was working with Mr. Ratan Tata after graduating from IIT Delhi, but before he went to join Wharton School for his MBA, was with me in the car. Suddenly, he said, without thinking, that the card could be called the Bank of India card. When it was issued by BOI, it would be called Bank of India's India card, and it was issued by another bank, it would be called, for example, Allahabad Bank's India card. I enrolled several banks as our partner, and if I remember correctly, Bank of Maharashtra, Bank of Rajasthan, Oriental Bank of Commerce, New Bank of India, Dena Bank, and some more joined the group. We also partnered with Taj Group of Hotels and issued a specific credit card to users of Taj Hotels. I do not know what happened after I left. I still feel that if India can have one card for the whole country, it should be called India card. Even now, if an enterprising person or corporation can float a credit card company on the lines of the MasterCard or Visa card, perhaps we may partially come to the exceptions of our present Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, to make in India. If need be, even IBA can play a pivotal role in this. Reserve Bank of India always had excellent, eminent, and eloquent persons of extraordinary skills as governors, bearing one or two instances when none of these qualities were thought necessary. I had the privilege of observing some governors from close quarters, and during my nearly 11 years as CMD of three banks, I had ample opportunities to interact with them. During my chairmanship of Bank of India, for example, I had the good fortune to get the guidance of the late R. N. Malhotra, a hard-boiled bureaucrat and an able administrator. His wife, Mrs. Anna George Malhotra, was also an IAS and was chairperson of Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust, Mumbai. She got Padma Bhushan award ahead of her husband. During his tenure, Malhotra had to devote more attention to the state of affairs of the banking industry in India. He got personally involved in close monitoring of the working of banks. He had devised a system of quarterly meeting with each bank exclusively to review their working practices. He had adopted a format that generated a lot of information about each bank's affairs. There was not a single point that was not to be covered by this format. It was so elaborate. Banks were asked to submit the details on the format at quarterly intervals, and after the RBI have assimilated them, the concerned bank was called in for a meeting. Banks took a team of officers to appear before the governors, CMD, ED, and general managers. Sometimes DGMs or special departments consisted of the team from the banks, and the RBI team had the governor, concerned deputy governor, chief and deputy chiefs of various departments of RBI. These meetings always lasted at least half a day. The governor would set the ball in motion by making certain observations based on the information submitted by the bank, and discussions followed. Such meetings were very critical but were held in very friendly and pleasant atmosphere. These meetings came to be called extreme meetings. If it were to happen now, we would probably call these meetings full body scan. In Bank of India's team, we had among others Mr. P. N. Joshi, who came to BOI from RBI and was head of our planning department. I must say Joshi was an invaluable asset to BOI and to me personally. He was soft spoken, very polite and thorough in his job, and a vast reservoir of banking knowledge. His drafting was exceptionally good and did not leave any room for me to make corrections except on very rare occasions. I might say I learned a lot of writing skills from him. In spite of all these high qualities, Joshi never argued with me on any matter. If he disagreed, which was rare, he had his own inimitable style of making me look at my approach afresh. His having been in the RBI earlier was also an added advantage for us at these quarterly meetings. We always went well prepared to face the governor's probing questions. He treated all bankers in a friendly manner and gave proper guidance. RBI used to maintain a record of the discussions they had with the bankers at these meetings and always followed them up. I made it a practice to write back to RBI as soon as we returned from the meetings, usually a summary of the discussions we had and action that we proposed to take up as a follow up. P. N. Joshi did this writing job without my having to tell him about it. He sent me a draft of these letters and might have only crossed the T's and dotted the I's. So perfect was his drafting that RBI started looking forward to getting our report before they started drafting their notes. When I joined BOI, Joshi was a deputy general manager and he rightfully got his promotion as a general manager in charge of planning, and I wanted to utilize his services to further improve the working of the bank. I asked him to take charge of some small zone, but he was hesitant because he had never handled other subjects. I encouraged him by assuring that I would stand by him and give him the necessary help in dealing with matters where he harbored doubts. He started in all earnest and solely attained proficiency. That made me think of proposing him to become the chairman of United Western Bank, which was in need of a strong person. RBI, thanks to my persuasion, accepted my proposal and appointed him. At his request, went to Satara to address the directors of the board of United Western Bank and give a roadmap for the bank to follow. Joshi was a great success as chairman of that bank. Unfortunately, his successor ruined the bank in a very short time. Joshi has chosen to settle down in Satara itself and he is still very popular in that place. And he continues to write articles on banking matters. His lucid style of writing and the clarity he brings are a treat for readers. We hold each other in great esteem. On the Diwali day, he would unfailingly call me at about 5 a.m. and wish me well. Such a good relationship between us is due to our coming together in Bank of India. Coming back to discuss about the quarterly meetings presided over by the Governor, Reserve Bank of India, it is true that these meetings and the meticulous follow-up by RBI by calling for periodical progress report went a long way to improve various aspects of the bank's administration. In the normal course of business, these were not given that much of attention by chairmen of other banks. As these meetings were participative and included 2 or 3 levels of officers from the bank and the RBI, it also made it easier for both groups of officers to get familiar with each other. The governor was always receptive to hear from the banks if they had any special matters to discuss apart from the format already laid out. On one occasion, when our meeting was over, the governor asked me if I had any issues that I would like to discuss. I was really encouraged by his willingness to hear and deal with my requests. I submitted to the governor that my bank was interested in setting up an automated teller machine ATM and that I have been knocking at the doors of RBI to discuss it without any success. I told the governor that during my visit abroad, I have seen how popular these ATMs were in countries outside India. As chairman of IBA, I felt I was making my views on this matter clear. The governor asked a pertinent question. Srinivasan, your bank has over 2,000 branches at that time. Now it is more than 5,600. What difference was it going to make it if you had one ATM? I politely replied, Sir, I would like to have 2,500 ATMs, but where should I start? I have to start with the first ATM. Is it not so? He was unyielding and asked what other purpose it was going to serve. To emphasize my point, I narrated an imaginary situation in a branch. I said that at my Ludhiana branch an incident had happened. The reason why I chose Ludhiana was to talk to the governor in Punjabi language, which was his mother tongue. Pardon my patting myself on the back for my working knowledge of that language, thanks to my grinding at the New Bank of India, Delhi. I spoke in Punjabi and told him that at 10 a.m. one day a depositor went to the branch to draw cash that he urgently needed. When he presented the check across the counter, the clerk on the other side asked the customer whether he had a good sleep the previous night. Why was he in such a hurry to come as soon as the doors of the branch were opened? Could he not wait for some time? Even though this type of talking to a customer could be considered offensive, the customer suffered such insults because he was depending on the clerk to get him his own money. I reiterated my point that if there was an ATM, such unpleasant situation would not arise at all. The ATM does not ask questions but gives good, crisp notes quickly and efficiently. The governor asked his officers, particularly the one who was sitting on my request made repeatedly, whether he had an objection to accede in my entreaty. The concerned officer remarked, Sir, if Srinivasan is prepared to surrender three branch licenses, he could consider granting permission to have one ATM. As a justification for his logic, he explained that while a branch worked for 8 hours, an ATM would work for 24 hours, and hence I needed to surrender three licenses. The governor had a hearty laugh. Was it an appreciation of my speaking Punjabi language or the strange logic of his own office? On hearing this, I replied that if this was the manner in which we had to get an ATM, I was prepared to give three bank licenses. The governor saw the hollowness in the reasoning of RBI and directed that BOI would be given license to get one ATM installed. Thus, after sustained efforts, the first ever ATM of any nationalized bank in India became a reality. We installed it at our Mahalakshmi branch, Mumbai, on 8th August 1988, and by that also became the first fully computerized branch of BOI. We got enough publicity for this by getting this event inaugurated by the then Finance Minister of Maharashtra, Sri Sushil Kumar Shinde, on the August 8th, 1988. It's 8888. The general manager in charge of Bombay City branches, Mr. Dara D. Avari, took minute care to ensure that the function became a big success and the bank received good publicity. If a chairman had such assistants, running a bank was very easy. Initially, by arrangement with Citibank, we allowed the customers of that bank to have access to our ATM for drawing money from their account. Although such ATMs started functioning from the same premises of the branch of the bank, I was optimistically imagining a policy change so that the ATMs could be located in public places such as railway stations, airports, markets, college campuses, and the like. I also spoke along these lines at an annual general meeting of IBA for which we made the governor of RBI the chief guest. Coming to think of this, RBI made so much of a fuss for granting permission to install a single ATM. Now you see ATMs of different banks in the same street and in some cases in the same building too. There is so much of a rush to claim ever increasing numbers of ATMs by every bank. Did it mean that the central bank of the country or its offices were not able to foresee this future trend in banking? Before switching over to other serious subjects, let me mention that during my tenure in Bank of India, the bank won awards from the government for giving employment opportunities to physically handicapped persons and was leading other nationalized banks in this concern. Awards were handed over by the President of India, Shri R. Venkataraman, and as chairman, I had the privilege to receive the honor. However, the entire credit for this rightly belonged to the bank and its impartial administration. While talking about President Venkataraman, I recall a news item appearing on the pages of Times of India. This was during the days when my name was being considered for the chairmanship of BOI. The news item said that some names were being considered, but R. Srinivasan, being closely related to R. Venkataraman, stood a much better chance than others in the race. Obviously, this news item would appear to have been planted because the truth is that we were not related even remotely. I was a Vaishnavite Iyengar Brahmin, while the president was a Shaivit Iyer Brahmin. At this stage, I would like to state that my having been born into a Brahmin family has never come in the way of my official life. I am one who believes that religion is a personal matter and it should never go out of the house of the individual concerned. Except that I am firm believer in the Almighty. I remain a non-smoker, non-drinker, and a vegetarian, and there is no exhibition of my religion or personal habits and at any time. The president belonged to my previous generation. Added to the news item, there were gossip that my wife was a daughter, and that meant the president was my father-in-law. To what extent can such stupid news can go? It had me to a great extent to cajole my wife whenever president was appearing on TV and tease her that her father was on television. I never allowed my imagination to run riot and daydream as to what would have happened if only I was a real son-in-law of the president of the India. To those who may be eager to know who was my real father-in-law, let me say again to the late V.S. Sheshadri Iyengar, M.A. L.T., who was headmaster of a board high school in North Arcot district of Tamil Nadu, gave his eldest daughter in marriage to me. He was a simple, honest, and straightforward person who practiced austerity throughout his life. He hailed from a remote village in North Arcot district, while I was from a smaller village in Thanjavur district. Unfortunately, he lost his father while still young and was brought up by his widowed mother, who gave him a good education and taught him the way to live. When I got married to his daughter, I was only a matriculate but eventually got CAIIB qualification. If only he knew the number of attempts I made to get this qualification, I'm sure he would have appreciated my perseverance. I always entertained a doubt that he must have assumed that this wonderful qualification was something more than a CA because it had IIB also added to it. He never asked what it meant, or did I volunteer to tell him for fear of getting rejected as a son in law. He felt mighty pleased that I graduated in arts from Karnataka University in 1972, some 25 years after I left school. It may be relevant to note that he died in December 1985 and I became CMD of Bank of India on June 24, 1987. Bank of India earned the government's appreciation for being the most successful bank in the proper implementation of the official language. The award was presented by the Vice President of India, the late Shankar Dayal Sharma, who was well known for his erudition and piety. It was a coincidence that on the day I got the award, Sri Yashwant Sinha, at that time he was IAS and Joint Secretary GOI, also got an award from the Vice President. At that function, I was seated next to Shri Yashwant Sinha. All of us know that he subsequently became the finance minister under the rule of the late Chandrasekhar. His son, Jayant Sinha, is now Minister of State Finance in the present BJP government. His portfolio has since undergone change. I must share some experiences concerning the implementation of official languages. There is a parliamentary committee on the implementation of the Official Languages Act by Public Sector Undertakings PSU. This committee also used to inspect various PSUs both at their head offices and certain selected branches or offices. This committee had a lot of powers vested in them. They could take severe action on blundering organizations and their chief executive, and their visits used to be looked upon with fear and trepidation. This committee used to insist that Hindi should be given more importance than English in every possible way, beginning with the signboards outside offices and then in the rooms of executives. They would expect replies to letters received in English should be sent in Hindi. As a concession, Government of India was prepared to accept that a reply sent in English but signed in Hindi was a Hindi reply. All rubber stamps should be either in Hindi or only or in Hindi and English, with Hindi getting precedence. Similarly, on letterheads, Hindi should come first. We had tickers of Reuters or PTI installed at the head office very near to the reception area, and all news used to come in English. This was not acceptable under the rules. It was not possible to get the ticker in Hindi at short notice, and officers were not that well trained to take news in Hindi. We therefore decided that it would be better to not have ticker at least on the day of the visit of the parliamentary committee. We decided to remove it. Similarly, no rubber stamp in English only would be found in the vicinity of the committee's visiting area. In this way, we strictly complied with the directives. Certain internal steps taken to encourage talent and loyalty to the bank included timely promotions and giving free hand to executives in decision making. As I had already assured these executives that their bona fide decisions would be fully supported, even if the decisions were to eventually turn out to be wrong, this allowed them to make bold decisions. Similarly, we also arranged to have annual dinner meetings with the staff of Mumbai zonal offices and the executives at the head office at the social level. This brought about a friendly atmosphere and understanding between both the offices and the staff. We established close relationship with leading banks in the United Arab Emirates and obtained credit lines for the bank. Concerted efforts were successful in getting substantial deposits from non-resident Indians. New business verticals were also established. We were one of the earliest among the nationalized banks to float a mutual fund, and we had eminent persons on the board of this mutual fund. The very first issue we launched got asset under management of nearly rupees 650 crores. That was the biggest success at the time. I have no idea why some time after I retired from the bank this mutual fund was rather unceremoniously closed down. We did not start a venture capital fund ourselves, but we participated in the shareholding of Credit Capital India Limited, which was one of the earliest venture capital funds in India. We always had very close relationship with the Bombay Stock Exchange. We strengthened this by forging an alliance with them and created BOI Shareholding Limited in partnership with PSE. By the end of the year 1989, Bank of India, although an all India bank, had only 13 branches in the Kerala state. Luck came our way when Parur Central Bank Limited, a private sector bank, was under good shape and Reserve Bank of India was looking for a strong bank to take it over. There were other banks in the southern region who were very keen to annex this bank. Thanks to our cordial relationship with RBI, we were able to bid for this, and Reserve Bank of India allowed this to happen after a lot of thorough examination of the pros and the cons. I would say that BOI taking over the Perul Central Bank was a landmark in the history of our bank. The PCB had 52 branches in all, 50 of them in Kerala and 2 in Chennai. They also had 2 regional offices in Ernakulam and Trivandrum. In one stroke, the number of branches of Bank of India in Kerala rose. All these branches of PCB began functioning as branches of Bank of India with effect from February 20, 1990. The takeover was very smooth. The entire credit for this should go to Shri P. N. Joshi at the head of office and Mrs. Rukmini Ramani in the field. They worked tirelessly. Every member of the former PCB was happy to have joined the mighty bank. They were very dedicated and hard-working individuals who brought good name to BOI by their service. Many of them must have retired by now and are probably pensioners of BOI. I remember that when New Bank of India opened its first branch in Kerala at Ernakulam, I was in charge of the branches of that bank in South India. Mr. Anthony Vachiraparabil, who was in Bank of India at that time, joined New Bank of India as the first manager. Somehow I found him not up to my expectations and he was there for us to go. I'm saying this just to make a point that all officers in big banks are not always good. And officers in smaller banks need not always be below expectations. There are good and bad apples in any basket. The chapter Bank of India and IBA Mumbai will continue in the upcoming videos. Thank you very much for your patience. Please do like, share and subscribe to this YouTube channel.